BBC News, I'm John Shea. Russia has appointed a new general to lead its forces in Ukraine, barely 3 months after the last shake-up which followed repeated battlefield losses. The chief of the general staff, Valery Gerasimov, replaces Sergei Surovikin, who was nicknamed General Armageddon for his tactic of indiscriminate bombing honed in Syria. From Moscow, here's Will Vernon.
We don't actually know the real reason for this demotion, for this reshuffle. The Defence Ministry kind of released this very vague statement saying that they needed to kind of improve efficiency and better coordinate actions between the various branches of the armed forces. But speculation is already rife here that the Kremlin was unhappy with General Surovikin, was unhappy with the way the war is going in Ukraine, setbacks on the battlefield, as we know, in the last few months. But the real reason, of course, remains to be seen.
A suicide bomb attack outside the Afghan Foreign Ministry in Kabul has caused heavy casualties. A police spokesman said 5 civilians were killed, but another Taliban official put the number of dead at 20. The attacker blew himself up after failing to get into the ministry. The Democratic Republic of Congo has condemned Rwanda for saying it will no longer take in people fleeing conflict in the east of the DRC. Rwanda's President, Paul Kagame, said the tens of thousands of refugees were not its problem. Charles Haviland reports.
A spokesman for the Congolese government said the remarks by Rwanda's president proved that human rights were of no value to him. Eastern Congo is scarred by dozens of conflicts, mostly over mineral resources. Tens of thousands of Congolese have crossed to Rwanda, fleeing fighting between the government and the powerful M23 rebels, who villagers accuse of abuses, including rape. The international community says M23 is supported by Rwanda, but Kigali denies this, in turn accusing Kinshasa of supporting Hutu extremist offshoots of the militia responsible for the 1994 Rwanda genocide.
The British Foreign Minister, James Cleverly, has said that Iran must halt the execution of a British-Iranian dual national, Ali Reza Akbari, and release him immediately. Mr Cleverly said it was a politically motivated act by a barbaric regime. Here's our diplomatic correspondent, James Landale.
Ali Reza Akbari is a British-Iranian national who was once the country's deputy defence minister. He had been living abroad, but during a visit to Iran in 2019, he was arrested and accused of spying for British intelligence. Mr Akbari denies the charges, but has been convicted and sentenced to death. His family told BBC Persian they had been asked to come to his prison in Tehran for a final meeting. This suggests his execution is imminent. In an audio message received by the BBC, Mr Akbari said he had been tortured and forced to confess to crimes he did not commit.
World News from the BBC. Reports from France say a man suspected of stabbing 6 people at the Gare du Nord railway station in Paris on Wednesday has been identified as a Libyan national in his 20s who was due to be deported. Police are still investigating the motive, but they're not believed to be treating it as terror-related. Turkish authorities are reported to have filed a lawsuit against the Istanbul mayor Ekrem İmamoğlu, a potential challenger to President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. Mr İmamoğlu is accused of rigging a public tender while he was a mayor of the city's Beylikdüzü district. He says it's a bogus charge and that an investigation at the time found no evidence of wrongdoing. The charge carries a possible jail sentence of up to 7 years. Britain's culture minister has insisted that the famously disputed Parthenon marbles belong in the UK and shouldn't be returned to Greece, from where they were removed in the 19th century. She claims the move would open a can of worms. Michelle Donnellan was speaking to the BBC.
I think sending them back is a dangerous road to go down. It's important that we stand up and protect our culture. This would open the gateway to the question of our entire contents of our museums. I mean, this is a very slippery slope to go down.
Ms Donnellan's comments follow reports that the British Museum is close to agreeing a deal to return the classical artworks, which are part of a frieze that decorated the Parthenon Temple in Athens before being removed by Lord Elgin. Tatiana Patitz, one of the first fashion supermodels, has died. She was 56. Born in Germany, Patitz rose to prominence in the 1980s, becoming one of the biggest names in the fashion industry. She worked closely with the German photographer Peter Lindbergh, who featured her alongside other supermodels on his celebrated 1990 cover of British Vogue. Patitz also appeared in various music videos, including the one for George Michael's pop anthem Freedom. And that's the latest BBC News.